Greetings, you wonderful warriors of the broken sword, you. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
And we are the Gosslings, a digital speakeasy of Christian authors, explorers of the esoterica, and general purveyors of buffoonery du jour on YouTube. And we are joined by two other amazing members of the Goslings, our eldest brother BJ and our nephew Joseph.
Oh yeah.
What's up, peeps?
BJ and Gosshog Lifts in the house.
The
Yeah.
eldest,
Good
the
evening.
OG Goss.
The OG, the original
OG
Gosling.
Goss.
Right.
Yeah. Let the goss flow.
Yeah, so
The
glad to
goss must
see
flow.
the Goss juice.
A torrent of goslings.
Are you blushing over there, Joe?
Maybe a little bit. It's just the glow from that red, that red drape. We hope everyone's doing well. We will jump right in.
Absolutely.
Wanna go
Let's
ahead
do
and
the
start with
toast. Absolutely. Grab your drinking vessels. I think you lead.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness. Cheers.
Amen.
Cheers.
All right.
Ah.
That's right.
You know, I could very easily clank and drink out of this, but I cherish it too much. I don't want to damage it. You probably have to do it really hard, but I do want to tell everyone about this gorgeous mug. Look at this thing. This is called a Kothon. It's a replica of what the Spartans drank out of back in Thermopylae.
Yes.
Yeah. These are beautiful, handcrafted. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong thing up there. There it is. There we go. This is a beautiful Kothon Spartan mug, handcrafted, hand-painted by Joel Cherico and his team at ChericoPottery.com. Designed in collaboration with the great Stephen Pressfield.
Yes.
Steven.
You've got to get yourself a Kothon. Drink like a man, get yourself a Kothon. Drink like a Spartan, get yourself a Kothon.
Yeah, like a spark.
That's right. And when you are finished drinking your libation from your holy chalice of Thermopylaean glory,
Nice.
you can then take care of that hirsute pate of manly facial hair with Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products. Hair and skincare products made by real men for real men, or as I like to say, be as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money.
Yeah.
Awaken your inner John Wick with
Yeah.
Giordani Jovanovic.
Yeah.
Somebody preach.
Go to JordaniJovanovic.com and support them because they support us.
Speaking of manly pates,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sucking at this beard game. Look at Jonathan. Look at Beej. And look, even Joe's got me beat. Goss Hog over there,
Yeah,
rocking the
baby.
dark hair. I've got this Irish foam on my face. I don't even know.
You have what's called a valiant effort. That's what that's called.
Yeah, I think that was his nickname growing up.
You know what? And let me tell you, if it wasn't for Giordani Jovanovic and that oil that I've been putting on this thing, there'd be nothing visible whatsoever. So special thanks to Mike Fisher over at JordaniJovanovic.com.
Yeah.
Mike, we appreciate you, man. Thank
Yeah,
you so
Mike.
much.
Yeah.
Also, I want
Yes.
to real quick, if you guys haven't yet, please subscribe. That'd be fantastic. Take up the broken sword of your finger, strike down the subscribe button, smack that bell on the bottom.
Smack that bell. Smack it like it owes you money.
Oh, here we go.
Is Wayne Brady going to have to choke a bell? Keep your YouTube pimp hand strong. Eat your
Yeah.
algorithm, Dave. Eat your algorithm. Or it is summertime.
Oh,
Oh, man. You can take an
Look
ice
out.
cube.
Here come
and
the
just
likes.
Run it on the contour of that bell. Just do a little Top Gun. Take my breath away. Bom, bom, bom. Bom, bom, bom. Bom, bom, bom. Every now and then I see a little likes on our channel. Boom, boom, boom.
is anyone else feeling uncomfortable yet?
I know.
I've said it before, but I've never not wanted to be a bell more than I do right now.
We're still talking about the bell?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. What's funny is the way this is positioned is that Nick is clearly the middle portion of the Oreo of this
yeah,
little
I
arrangement between me and BJ.
Except unlike Jonathan, I actually kind of look like a bell.
Well, you know, you haven't seen me from the waist down.
Well, if you guys
I
have,
don't want to.
if you guys have, no, we got community guidelines here, folks. If you guys have subscribed, if you have hit the bell, thank you.
Yes.
First of all, we really appreciate that. And if you've done all those things already, even if you're lurking and you're not in the chat, if you just hit the like button real quick, just tap it. It won't take you away from the channel. You won't have to do anything else. Just click that like button.
Yeah.
That's what tells the algorithm they can go stick it to themselves, so to speak.
Yep, they can update their AI.
Yeah, they update the AI. Tell the AI gods that this video needs to be seen by more people like you.
Yeah,
Hit the like button.
it's a holy hand grenade in the server of the AI.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
5 is right out.
5 is right out.
This was right out.
So let's talk about our guest tonight. I got the interview queued up.
Yeah,
Doug Woodward.
yeah, we really enjoyed talking to Doug Woodward. He has his book, The Septuagint and the Defense of the Christian Bible. This is the hardcover version of the book, if that you can get from him, personalized and signed. If you make a donation to, I think he has some medical stuff, or his wife has some medical stuff going on, so they're trying to raise some money.
Yeah.
And but it's beautiful, man. It's a gorgeous book, and we had a great time talking to Doug.
Yeah.
Doug is he's a lot of fun. He's very well versed and well rounded in a number of topics. And man, we talked UFOs.
We talked a lot of UFOs with Doug, as you guys will see.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It was cool.
UFO.
Oh, yeah.
We love UFO.
Oh, we
talk.
do. Oh, it's good. It's hot
Yeah.
right now. It's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah, that's
Something's going on.
so hot right now.
So hot right now.
Oh, it's hot. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot.
UFOs, UAPs, they're the same thing. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Well, I'm ready to play the interview.
Hit it,
I'm
baby.
ready to get on. You guys ready?
Yeah,
Let's do this
absolutely.
thing.
You haven't seen it. They haven't seen it yet. That's what we're really excited about. They're going to be watching. We'll be with you guys we'll be in the live chat with you guys tonight. And I think Mr. Woodward himself may be in the chat at some point.
Possibly. We're
Yeah.
hoping so.
We're hoping
yeah.
so, if he can make it.
yeah.
So
Make
it's
it
going to
so.
be good, guys.
Stay tuned.
All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
All right.
Doug Woodward.
Ladies and
part one.
gentlemen, our interview with Doug Woodward.
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Doug Woodward, author of The Septuagint and Defense of the Christian Bible, the new book that is just out. We're really excited to have you back, Doug. We really enjoy our time with you. We just got finished doing a 35, 40-minute Patreon exclusive where we talked about a bunch of stuff. One of the things we talked about that I kind of want to circle back with you is you made a really strong connection between the subject matter of the recent Jim Caviezel movie, The Sound of Freedom, and the UFO disclosure stuff that is going on, especially with the stories that have been coming out, like from Sean Ryan's channel and some of the interviews that are being made there. Talk about the relevancy of alien disclosure and what you think that is, and what our government's role is in with all of that.
Yeah, well, I could probably talk for half an hour just on that question. It's a big question. And certainly the government is up to its earlobes in hiding the truth of what's been going on. Now, I tend to agree with the sort of standard wisdom of most Christians, which is that we're not dealing with true extraterrestrials. We're dealing with some type of a demonic manifestation, and so the visitors may be ultra dimensional versus extraterrestrial. So I still think that's kind of the overall backdrop to the story. But given that, I also think, as I've believed in L.A. Mazzulli, and I've talked about this, that a lot of what happens is the government, the technology that they've learned and that they have been developing, and that they've been back engineering from downed UFOs. And so I also believe that the whole UFO story is part of probably the core part of the great deception of the last days, the great apostasy, the great falling away. So that's kind of a big element of this. But the technology of anti-gravity,
Nice.
ability to motivate and move airplanes forward, the connection to 0-point energy. I've developed a friendship, very fortunately, with Barry Setterfield, who's done a massive amount of work on the subject of 0-point energy with just some amazing insights. If the Lord allows, I started writing a book on all this about 14 months ago. It's been delayed because of my wife's health and a little bit of my own health issues. So I have written about 100 pages of it. I'm hoping to get back to it. I've been listening endlessly to videos and reading books and so forth. So I'm pretty well armed, and I'm going to come out with a book that challenges the standard thinking about Einstein and the speed of light and all of that stuff. So I'm going to, do a mental suicide mission challenging the academic world on the whole issue of physics, astrophysics, astronomy, etc. So, but I'm getting a lot of help with the James Webb Telescope in terms of its findings. It's going to give me it's giving me a lot of ammunition as well. But back to the issue of UFOs. So the government appears to be, and I think Stephen Greer, who's done tremendous amount of work on this for the last 30 years, the government is actually, our government is responsible for probably 80 or 90% of the sightings that are reported. And the great big giant triangles with lights, in the corners and all that, these are probably anti-grav aircraft that the United States has built. And it's, according to Greer, we've known about anti-grav and how to use it since about 1954. That was the year I was born, so I guess that's important. I don't know why, but we've apparently known about it for decades, and we've kept that all those secrets away from the public. And of course, there would be massive changes in the infrastructure of our country, because it would change everything related to gasoline, oil, public utilities. Everything would be radically changed. And so the issue of his latest movie, The Lost Century, is talking about just exactly that. And so, so you've got the government utilizing this technology and building weapons that they haven't had to bring out. They only brought out like the F-117 Nighthawk when they needed to go bomb what's his name, Muammar Gaddafi.
Gaddafi, yeah.
That out because they needed that that stealth capability. So there could be capability that they're just putting back on reserve. And the guy that talked about what was it, the Skunk Works projects out at Lockheed, Ben Rich, I believe his name was, and talking about the fact that we have the technology to take ET home. So there's the opportunity for the U.S. government is there to use those things. And of course, it's not just the government, U.S. government, it's really the deep state or the government behind the government that exist based upon power elites that we certainly speculate about who that might be, but there's no way to prove any particular individuals are involved in that. but they're apparently utilizing these technologies for other ways to make money, and they're up to their earlobes in sex trafficking, even using flying saucer technology as a means to capture and transport um, women and children, put them into human trafficking. And not only that, but some of the more sinister and more gruesome ideas, such as organ harvesting and the adrenochrome issue, which a lot of people poke fun at us because we actually believe that occurs, but we do believe that occurs.
Yeah, it's in the NIH.
Is it really?
The Sean Ryan Jim Caviezel episode was amazing because when Jim Caviezel brought it up, he said it's in the NIH, and then Sean Ryan's producers faded in a graphic that showed the actual
That
classification.
it was. No, that's really
Classification
good.
of what adrenochrome is.
Actually is. It actually
Wow.
is. Well, and I mean, it was back in the first time we heard about it was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was 90s, right?
That's a movie I never saw,
Or
but
2000.
maybe now I need to go back and look.
just watch that scene. I mean, it's got
It's hard to
it's got
watch.
some moments, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not the worst, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's that scene where what's his face, Benicio del Toro's character, Dr. Gonzo, they're doing a bunch of drugs in the hotel room, and he's like, here, try some of this. It's he's like, what is this? It's adrenochrome. And he's like, I got it from a satanic priest. Only take a couple drops. It's pretty powerful, man.
And he downs like the whole vial.
Yeah, he takes a whole drop. Yeah.
Well, it's satanic for sure. I mean, goodness gracious, all of these satanic rituals that. So that's another part of it, of course. But yeah, I think that there is the powers behind the government, the secret government, that they are using these technologies, and for by and large, members of our defense department aren't really read into all of this.
Yeah.
And there's only occasionally where you find individuals that are included in what's going on. So yeah, it's just it's an incredible story, and Sean Ryan has done a great job. Stephen Greer, of course, has done a lot.
Yeah.
Not without controversy.
No, but his story hasn't changed, right?
No, it hasn't. It's been consistent.
Yeah.
And I'm not really wild about his concept of meditating and encountering the extraterrestrials, because I don't. He believes that they're all warm, loving, and they exist for our betterment. I think he's being very foolish in that respect.
Who's Sean Ryan or Greer?
Stephen Greer.
Stephen
Yeah.
Greer. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's encountering something real, but they're not necessarily extraterrestrials. So his speculation on what motivates them and so forth, and I think he's really been fooled.
Yeah.
He's been deceived, and so that's too bad.
Yeah, and that happens a lot, especially with materialists. Aliens really are kind of the new religion. It's either environmentalism or it's
Right.
aliens, and it's that whole panspermia thing.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's the coming great religion and deception that Ellie Marzulli talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
and I think that's very likely to be the case. It's certainly capturing a lot of people's imaginations. We've been watching movies for the last 20, 30 years that continue to bring out more and more stories where the aliens usually are not friendly.
Right.
So that's like folks like Daniel List, the dark journalist. He deals a lot with the concept of continuance of governance. What's it called?
Continuity of governance.
Government. Yes.
Yeah.
And dealing with the fact that this is a major psyop that's being conducted in part by the CIA and the other powers that be to basically frighten the public into adopting, accepting more authoritarian control as a means of providing security.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically what happens is people give up their freedom for better security.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are, and that's where we'll continue to go, I think.
It's the same reason why they keep the border insolvent. Because if
Mm.
you can keep the border insolvent, not only do you keep everything flowing as far as your illicit substances that you want, whether it's people
Right.
or consumable substances,
Mhm. Right.
but you also create enough instability and chaos to justify the militarization of the police and all of the things that the Patriot Act afforded people.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's really true. You know, we're definitely being led by despicable people.
Mhm.
It's I'm afraid. So I won't say any more. I won't name names because I know that we want to keep the show available on YouTube.
Yeah,
But I
I'd
think
like to not make Clinton's list. Is all I'm saying. You know?
nobody wants to get Clinton.
I don't want to get I don't want to get Vince Foster. You know.
But I
No,
do want to say something.
Yeah,
I-
Arkansas. Yeah, don't want that.
Well, I want to make sure that I'm tracking.
Sure.
You're saying that, and I can see either way or both. You're
Mhm.
saying that this UFO technology,
Right.
the U.S. government has it, and it's being used, at least in part,
Mhm.
to traffic people.
Yeah, I don't.
That's one part.
I don't know if that's necessarily the main thing, but that came up in this interview that we heard just a few days ago, probably. So yeah, and it makes sense that that's what they're doing. You know that
Where can people hear that interview?
it's Sean Ryan's show. It is on YouTube.
Vigilance Elite is the name of the
Vigilance Elite. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, I think it's like episode 65 or episode 66, as I recall.
He's done
So-
like a 3-part series on
Mhm.
UFOs
Yeah.
recently, and that
third-
was
hmm Yeah, the third guy, the first one was Stephen Greer. The second one was this gentleman, I can't remember his name. And then third one was a gentleman that was involved in Antarctica. And it seemed like his notions were a bit more specious. He didn't really tie them down the way that the guy did that was talking about the massive UFO and what was happening in Indonesia and so forth. So, and this was, this wasn't like last week when this happened. This has been some time ago, so.
You also say that this UFO phenomenon in part is authentic. We're talking about interdimensional beings that are also
Right.
using these types of craft that we're seeing as well. So is it kind of both?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe that that's the case, and I think, that L.A. Marzulli would agree with that. That it's he and I've talked about it several years ago, and that was, his conclusion and mine was that it's both. But I think it's more craft that have been built, and tested at S4 at Groom Lake and all that.
Mhm.
And I think, I think that they have encountered alien bodies, and I don't know what Satan is up to, but I give him credit for creating them in some manner. So,
You know what? You know what's so interesting about the conversation that's happening now, thanks to people like you, L.A.
Mhm.
Marzulli, Vicky Joy Anderson.
Mhm.
There's always been this false binary war between science and religion,
Mhm.
But then when you start looking at the alien issue,
Right.
and you look at Jet Propulsion Laboratories, you look at Aleister Crowley and the connections there,
Right.
and then you look at all the occult ties that go into these things. Operation High Jump,
Mhm.
Operation Fishbowl, and then you get into these anecdotes about saying the name of Jesus is all that repels alien abductions.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it seems that these things are not separate issues, and that's almost like a conversation that no one wants you to have.
Mhm. Yeah. The convergence of all those is, that's certainly the way I see it, is that these issues do converge.
Yeah.
And, if you study, which I have and written about in the book I did on Mars, I talk about it at great length, studying the interest in Mars by various, folks that were doing those kinds of studies 120, 130 years ago. You'll see that they are not just interested in astronomy, but they're also interested in the occult. And so the two are tied together, and they've, it really proves that the two have been tied together ever since it became a popular issue, right? And it became part of the parlor tricks, that were going on back in the at the turn of the century. Not
Oh yeah, the spiritualism movement.
exactly spiritual Houdini and so forth. Yeah. So exactly. So trying to remember some of the names. Flammarion, Camille Flammarion. He's the example. The great Frenchman that he wrote and had tremendous success.
Oh yes.
With his books on the UFOs, but he did extensive studies of occultists, and it's just amazing. Even trying to think why his name's escaping me. The man that discovered the American that was so interested in the canals on Mars. You guys are probably going to think of his name, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. And it should be obvious to me because his, I wrote the book, so. But I'm 69 years old now, and so these things escape me sometimes. But the work he did in like around the 1890s and so forth, he was studying in Japan. And not only was he interested in astronomy and the planet Mars and so forth, but he was also studying Japanese occultism. And so, once again,
Percival Lowell.
Thank you, Percival Lowell. Yeah. So you have some of these sort of giants of the early day analysis of planets and Venus and all that. They've always been tied with the occult. So the issue of sort of materialism. Yeah, they sort of have a materialist foundation, but they also, all of them, believe in spiritualism as well, which is the opposite of materialism. So it's a very strange sort of composition that they created, but they did, and it exists obviously today in Ancient Aliens and that religion. So you've seen it all along, and that was kind of why I wrote the book on Mars, as I was pointing out that what's going on with Ancient Aliens is over 100 years old.
It's ancient. Yeah,
it is ancient. Yes, exactly.
So when I see lately, when I see in the news on one of the mainstream media platforms, when I see, hey, there was a UFO sighted, here or there,
right.
or there's a story about it, I always think like, okay, what are they trying to distract me from? What's really going on?
Yeah,
it almost seems like they're this soft disclosure, the
right.
leaking out of a little story here or there about someone seeing a UFO is just trying to divert attention away from something bigger going on. But are you saying that might not be the case? Maybe we should pay a little more close attention to these sightings?
No, I would, Stephen Greer, his view, and certainly Daniel List's view, Joseph Farrell's view, the people that I listen to that have opinions on this, they all believe that the guys that have been coming out and talking about UFOs currently and showing the little pictures of the Tic Tac UFO and things like that, a film that was made over almost 20 years ago, that they're really not disclosing the truth. They're just barely scratching the surface to begin to build more fear, because the folks that study this suggest that this is a psychological operation, and that trying to build greater fear in the minds of the public. And but I do believe that most of there was a guy I can't think of his name. It's like Vorsh or something that just came out and talked about his understanding of what's going on with UFOs. And he, like the others, they're actually coming. They're basically CIA guys that have claimed that they're whistleblowers, and it's a farce. They're not really disclosing what we're doing or what we know. And so, yeah, to your point, I think it is a real phenomenon. It's really going on. But what we're hearing from the government right now in terms of disclosure, what some of the Congress people, Marco Rubio and others are, sort of pitching right now. It's a false disclosure. and it's not telling us what's really happening. And it is, I think you're right, kind of a distraction. It's make everybody look over here on the left when what's really happening is over on the right. And so I think that's very possible. It's very likely.
You had mentioned something about Percival Lowell being involved in the Japanese occult. You know, we have never really had anybody delve too deeply into the Asian side of the occult. We've always dealt with Middle Eastern.
Right.
What's the significance of the Japanese occult, especially as it relates to what he discovered on Mars, if anything, and the broader picture as far as aliens go, if anything?
I can't say because I didn't drill down into it. All I know was that it was an extensive study that he did. He wrote about it, and when he came back to the U.S., he was totally engaged in the occult and in the search for intelligent life on Mars. And so, at the same time, you had Marconi and you had Tesla. Tesla, was publishing. I don't know if I've talked with you guys before about some of the stuff in my Mars book.
No, we haven't.
Okay. Well, you might want to read it. It's one of my more wild, out there kind of books. But
nice.
Tesla talked about, published in the year 1900, in like Collier's Saturday magazine, talked about his interactions with Martians sending radio signals to America, to his, to this world, and so he talked about it extensively, and created like a story that I was all alone in my lab in Colorado Springs, and when the silence was broken by a radio signal, and I listened and became convinced that it was an intelligence signal, and I've decided that it had to come from Mars because that's the only planet where intelligent life could come from. And so he became a real believer that that intelligence existed and on Mars, and so the radio waves, an invention that he and Marconi had just created, the radio, within the last 3 or 4 years before that it was a means of signaling between Mars and the Earth. So it's part of the story.
Interesting.
Tesla and Marconi, radio waves from Mars.
There you go. Yeah.
Is that the title of your book? What's the book titled?
The book title is Lying Wonders of the Red Planet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I tied that into the Great Deception of the Last Days and do a history. It's really a history of our infatuation with Mars and how it relates to ancient aliens. So I actually had the ancient aliens people call me, and they were interviewing me to be one of their experts. And then they realized that I was actually anti-ancient aliens. And so they quickly indicated that the phone call would end. So,
can't have that.
We don't want anyone that would actually give us reasons not to believe that there are ancient aliens out there. So
there's somebody else currently, a contemporary of ours, that is really interested in getting to Mars, but he never talks about looking for life really there so much as just establishing, colonizing it essentially.
Right.
Which everyone seems to.
He just wants a tweet from Mars.
I think so. Maybe it's an adventure he's seeking.
It's funny because, most people demonize the American idea of manifest destiny unless it's going to another planet and colonizing what might potentially be there.
Yeah.
Talk about Musk a little bit. What are your opinion? What's your opinion on what he's trying to do?
Yeah. Well, I think he's certainly a product of our environment today. Obviously an elite billionaire made from technology. I used to work for one when I was at Microsoft. Worked for actually several. They were all billionaires in the Billionaires Boys Club. So I think that his interest in Mars is sincere. His knowledge of extraterrestrials and all that, I don't think he really talks about it much. I don't think he wants to get sidetracked or have people pass him off as some kind of a conspiracy theory kook. So I think that what he's doing is fantastic as far as rocket technology. I was like blown away when I saw the two of the rocket ships come back down and land straight up, and they landed simultaneous fashion. I thought, man, oh man, this is a milestone. This is a huge milestone. And so, but then you get back to the challenge of going to Mars and why go to Mars, and is it really feasible? I mean, to me, Mars is kind of a crazy place to colonize because it's near the asteroid belt. It has lots of craters on the planet, and there's a reason why.
Right.
And so
Shooting gallery over there.
right. You can't breathe the atmosphere because there isn't one.
It's almost like a Ukrainian trench.
Yeah, it is. It's like, let's go somewhere where it absolutely makes no sense, and let's spend, billions upon billions of dollars to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm romantic enough at heart that, the idea of learning about the Martian planet, I mean, it's fascinating. I loved writing the book that I wrote. It's my favorite book because I got to, read all of these different guys that had written about it. Ray Bradbury and, Asimov and all these guys, Jack Parsons, I mean, what a crazy guy, being connected with Aleister Crowley, the JPL, used to have a meeting of different science fiction writers that came to his house, Jack Parsons' house. And, and they basically did discussions and semi-seances, I think, but he called his house the Parsonage.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Jack Parsons, of course it's the Parsonage.
He sounds like he had a great sense of humor at the very least.
No, I think he did. Yeah.
I mean, with that hair, he had to be fun.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah. And he was probably greatly troubled with demons too, I would say, given what all he was doing out in the desert and so forth. Eventually. Yeah, that's right. Babylon working. And so, so what a character, interesting guy. So my brother's has a son-in-law. Doesn't mean that means I'm not related to him, but he is responsible for the parachute that the Mars, like Discovery and so forth, landed on Mars, and he was like the project manager to build and test the parachute. So
cool.
So he was pretty interested in my book on Mars, and so I never have had a chance to discuss it with him, but I've made a couple of references of what he does in the book. So
have you ever heard of Tim Cohen's theory on Mars?
I don't think so.
Tim Cohen wrote The Antichrist in a Cup of Tea, which is a pretty compelling case.
Right.
King Charles being the Antichrist. And we've had Tim on a few times, and he always gives great presentations. He's got this whole side theory, though, where he's got like 10,000 pictures from the Mars rover. And he thinks that like there are all these, and some of them look pretty interesting, that there are all these Nephilim fossils and also like still living creatures on Mars. It's a fascinating subject. It's like, man, there's just so much stuff out there.
Well, if we have an hour, I can take you down that rabbit trail. Because it's
okay.
Fun. I've talked even with Steve Quell about it a little bit.
But
let's do it. You want to right now?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Well, I'll hit a couple of highlights.
This is the juice, baby.
So
this is the Wild West of the Goslings. Come on.
So I actually theorized that, which was, I proved that it didn't happen, although it almost did. I had predicted that the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's landing on the moon, that was like July 6th or something of 1969. So this would have been 2019. That on that anniversary, that the government would actually do a disclosure and would announce that there was evidence on Mars as well as the moon that civilizations once existed there. And so that there would be found artifacts. And there are many people that, theorize that. In fact, there's a lot of commotion right now about that on the moon. That's why that Japan and Europe and others are trying, and India are wanting to go back to the moon. And we talk about it. but that's an interesting discussion too. So yeah, so you've got these questions about, okay, well, who's out there, and is it real? So I I in the book I go into the story, the comic books of Jack, what's his last name, that did some of the famous
John Carter of Mars.
Well, that's a
Those?
story, of course. That's one of the stories about. Yeah, that's the guy that also did Tarzan.
Right.
Yeah, and but no, there's the Ray Bradbury, the Martian Chronicles. You've got, of course, closer to our group is the work of, okay, what's his name, David Flynn.
Okay.
His book Cydonia, tremendous book. Oh, really great book. Love it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so he talks about the connection between Cydonia and the Earth, and there's some really fascinating pictures that of what happens, or what's been found, sort of around the face of Mars, and the connection between the sort of the geometric shapes that are at this location, with a mirror reflection of those around Stonehenge and Silbury Hill in England.
Wasn't
And
there some stuff that seemed to mirror the Gizeh necropolis also? Or I may be thinking of something else.
well, there's certainly the belief that the Orion constellation is pictured at
That's
the
probably what I'm thinking of.
yeah. Now this one is a little bit more frightening, I guess, or creepy. I show some of the pictures there, talk about that. Was there a connection? Was there an ancient civilization on Mars? Okay, so Steve Quill and I had this discussion, and I said, I'm trying to think of the name, Andrew, can't think of his last name right now, but he is this attorney, lives in Vancouver, Washington, and he talks about the fact that he was doing time travel, and that he did a time travel, and it actually was catapulted to Mars through what he called a jump room, which was located at 999 Sepulveda Boulevard near LAX. And so he went into the elevator, and 11 minutes later, he was on the surface of Mars. And he wasn't alone. There were other people there, including Barack Obama. So,
Look, I've seen Obama in that sparkly, headdress thing.
Yes,
Yeah, I believe it. Him and Big Mike just living
that's
it up
right.
on Mars.
So
Yeah.
I told Steve, I said, Steve, you need to be careful with this guy, because I said he's admitted, because I read quite a bit about him and read quite a bit that he'd written. Said he admits that he probably wasn't at Mars, but he was in some kind of alternative universe, or sort of a shell of some sort. All right, so I said, don't put your don't place your faith in this guy, because I think he's been fooled. And Steve was just real strong opposed to what I just said. And oh no, I've talked to several different colonels and generals, and we have people on Mars, and we've been there for quite some time, and so it's kind of the secret space program concept. And so he said, it's like money in the bank, man. And I just go, well, okay, I advised you, be aware.
Mhm.
you may get drugged down into a rabbit hole here. So
I've
But
heard
he-
of that before.
yes,
Yeah, from former Air Force intel guys.
yeah,
Who were like, because I asked him one day, I was like, dude, did we ever really go to the moon?
Yeah.
And he was like an older Gen Xer, and he was like, yeah, we probably went to the moon and then some.
yeah. The cartoonist was Jack Kirby. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, Jack Kirby, yeah,
Who's Jack Kirby?
He's a cartoonist that did some of the famous
big comic book guy.
books back in the 50s and so forth. But he had done a comic book called The Face on Mars, and this was like in 1959 or something like that. And of course, the face on Mars at Cydonia was sort of discovered in a way around 1973, I think it was. I'm trying to keep my throat from going into the coughing cycle again. So anyway, in the face of Mars, the astronauts that go to Mars, they go in through the eyes of the face on Mars, and they go down and they discover this massive science laboratory, and so the story of the face on Mars was the discovery that there was a civilization on Mars that probably died out 1,000,000 years ago. All right, so that's one of the incidents. There's 3 or 4 others that I talk about that was sort of foreshadowing of what was going to come to pass in our day, but this was sort of forecasted by Jack Kirby and some other stuff that was done that was just like, wow, this sort of mirrors what's happening. So anyway, Book on Mars, Lying Wonders of the Red Planet. If you haven't read it, I had L.A. Marzulli wrote the foreword for it, and it's as L.A. called it, a romp, because I'd go and I tell all these stories, and I think it's pretty entertaining.
I got to get this book.
Lying Wonders of the Red Planet.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So last question before we move on to the book. Just to sort of tie all this together, because I know you're a little pressed for time. I mean, we kind of have like at least an hour,
Yeah,
I don't want to.
we can go on. Yeah, well, let's take another 15 minutes or so here, why don't we?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Never mind. Keep going. Another 15 minutes. Talk about all this stuff. Doug, go.
Go. That's right. There's a lot more I talk about. So I have a good time, tracing all this. And again, it all leads up to ancient aliens and what to make of the ancient alien phenomenon. So, but it's fun. You guys, if you have interest in UFOs and the history of all this, you'd enjoy reading the book a lot.
I tell you, the timeline that fascinates me so much, and I think it does set us on a path that becomes relevant today as we are probably in the end times, is that post-spiritualist to, or maybe spiritualist to post-World War II era, especially that like 45 to 40.
47, 48 are kind of the big
big
that's
ones.
kind of the major year where so much happens, including Israel becoming a nation, but a whole bunch of other things happened in 1948.
Yeah. Talk about some of those, because we have Israel becoming a nation. We have Jack Parsons. We have, a lot of these operations where we are, trying to either go to Antarctica or trying to blow up the firmament, or just all these different things that are happening.
You're not too far from the formation of CERN in that time frame. I think it was in 51. And of course, CERN is another interesting story. What are they really trying to accomplish at CERN? And so forth. So yeah, you have a whole lot of things that are happening in that time frame. I don't have a list in front of me and I can't, pull it back in memory, but yeah, there's about 8 or 10 things that are fairly significant in the world at that time. Like the United Nations was formed in 1948, San Francisco, I believe. So there's really a lot of fascinating things. So we are in the end times, and all this stuff does flow into things that are related to the end times and to the final great deception that I believe is taking place now, and will really come to a head the more and the further along we go with disclosure.
Yeah,
it is happening now. It's just happening in a very deceptive way, if you will.
Let me ask you a question. So, and we love Brian Godawa.
I do.
We had a great conversation.
Yeah.
We really love him. And we have some friends of ours, some other friends of ours that are preterists as well.
Yeah.
Maybe me a little bit. Maybe.
So I want my preterist
we're
brethren.
all a little bit preterist, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Things did happen in that first century.
Yeah.
They're kind of
I'm
significant.
a partial preterist.
Thanks.
I'm partial.
Right.
I'm partial.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He says it now. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm 5% preterist, 95% not preterist.
Right. Yeah.
So,
You really should be 50-50, because Jesus's first coming occurred in the past, and Jesus' second coming will occur in the future. And the
Mhm.
Bible is
Okay,
about
guys.
split 50-50 in terms of prophecies that pertain to the first coming versus prophecies that pertain to the second coming. So that's what I've heard.
Let's say you had a dear friend, and that friend was preterist, and you firmly believe we're in the end times. And they're
Right.
not. It's not coming. They're not paying attention. They're not
Right.
looking for any signs. They're just living
Right.
their Christian life.
Right.
What sign would you say, okay, well, listen, if you see this thing happen,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know that I'm right.
Right. Right.
What is that thing?
Well, I'd say if you see missiles launched from Russia that are headed toward the United States, you better hope the rapture is going to happen, because it's going to, because nuclear bombs are going to be going off in major cities, and the rapture is likely to be in effect at about that time, and so that would be a pretty big sign. But short of that, I certainly think that you look at all of the different pieces of what we talk about in terms of the scenario, the Gog Magog war, the unification of nations, Israel being formed as a nation, Israel being at the center of all the controversy in the Middle East, wars, rumors of wars, all of the specific things that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24. But of course, he draws it all to a point when he says, "But when you see, the man of sin basically standing in the place where he's not supposed to be, then you know that the time is happened. It's happening." And so when we see the abomination of desolation, that's the sign, and that's the sign that better tell you, it was the sign in about 67 AD that told Christians to leave Jerusalem, that Jesus did predict that was going to happen. And that's the part of sort of preterism that we all should believe. He predicted it, and it happened.
It did happen, yeah.
It did happen. And so now the question is, if we see that repeated again, it may be repeated in a slightly different fashion, but it's likely that there will be one last, a last call. Last call.
Angels ringing the bell over there.
Yeah. So this is your last call. So signs in heaven, right? Undeniable signs in heaven, angels, Project Bluebeam. I mean, all these weird things. There's going to be some very strange things in the heavens that I think are going to be signs. Could be wormwood, right? Could be the planet or comet or whatever that crashes into Earth and creates a huge events of death and destruction and so forth. So those are the signs, and if the preterist believes that those kinds of things are not going to happen, or they don't signal the return of Christ, I would say that they're really failing to read prophecy. I mean, maybe you don't want to agree with all of the scenarios of the dispensationalists, but and I think even Brian is a futurist to the point of saying Jesus is going to come back. It's just a question of how much of what was predicted in Luke 21, Matthew 24 is really going to happen and be fulfilled in our day. He challenges that, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that the signs in the heavens, I think we're going to see that. I think the turmoil among nations, all of these things, the United Nations, they're by themselves, none of these things are the sign. But when you take them all together, it's like, boulders rolling down a hill. You can dodge one or two, but, if there's hundreds of boulders coming at you at the same time, you're not going to dodge them all. And that's kind of the way signs are in our times. There are so many signs that we are in the last days. So it's time to get ready. Last call isn't too far away.
All right, there you go, guys. There's part one of Doug Woodward talking about
Stick
the end
around.
times, just stoking those preterist flames.
And we do have some wonderful preterist friends.
I mean, I dance with that idea all the time,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I don't blame anybody for it. All right. So while Nick is loading up part 2, I am going to tell you about our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/the Gosslings, or if you are watching this on your phone or computer, if you scan that QR code that's on your screen right now, you can go to our Patreon and you can sign up. We have several different tiers that offer a variety of different things, everything from discounts on merch to signed copies of our books, because yes, Nick and I are actually authors.
Surprise.
Yeah. But the big thing that we offer, and we offer it to most of the Patreon levels, the tiers, is access to the full interview.
Right.
Do you remember how much extra time we spent talking to Doug? I want to say it was like 45 or 50
at
minutes.
least a half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we were talking about some stuff that we just was a little too sensitive for community guidelines.
Yeah. And the
So.
Patreon is important for that. It helps protect the channel.
Yep.
So that we can talk about all those things that YouTube doesn't like us talking about. But we still get to provide that content by asking those questions and having that conversation in a safe space. But it also helps.
I hate that term.
I know,
I
right?
hate that term.
But it also helps support the channel.
Yep.
Everything that people invest into the channel through the Patreon gets redirected back into the channel via equipment. That's why Nick has the splitter now, so we can and an extra camera. We have a ring light.
Yep.
You know, we're constantly looking for ways to upgrade and improve the channel. So if you like what we do here and you want to see the full interviews, and if you want anything else, go over to patreon.com/the Gosslings and check us out on Patreon and see if there's anything we can provide for you.
Yep.
So,
That's right.
all right.
That's right.
Well, here we go.
Anything else from our fellow Goslings over there?
Well, preterist, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Preterist.
Jonathan likes to dance with the devil in the pale moonlight.
I do. I do. Yeah.
So let's see what else happens.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. All right. Here we go. Doug Woodward.
Part 2.
Part 2. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't had anything like AI yet, you know?
Yeah, well, that's happening right now, isn't it? So, my goodness.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, what do you think that role? What do you think role? What role do you think AI might play in all of that? Sorry, I had to hit it. Had to get it out there.
That's all right. That's all right. It's clearly gonna be a huge disruptor. I mean, like, you know, Elon Musk would say that we need to tie it down and keep it from being as revolutionary as it could be. But you see how it could certainly displace jobs dramatically. I think that's going to happen. You're also going to see some really probably bizarre ways that's going to be used that is going to make everyone rethink the nature of humanity, nature of intelligence, the real difference between being human and being a machine. You know, so I think that the image of God is going to be threatened. You know, so because we're going to look pretty stupid compared to what some AIs can do. You know, but the image of God, there's got to be something about us being able to contact the divine and the divine being able to contact us that isn't going to be repeated in the machine. And so, you know, we probably want to be tuning up our spiritual beacons, you know, to be in communication with the Lord God.
Absolutely.
You know, so
I'm into that, brother.
Yeah, so that's where we're going. I think is the Terminator 2 scenario.
So what do you think the mark of the beast is going to be then, or some ideas, some theories?
Right. Well, I do think that we're quick to suppose that it's DNA related, that it's a change of our DNA. You know, the theory that, and I think it's a theory that COVID changes our DNA.
Yeah.
It clearly has an impact upon our body. You know, the RNA and all of the spike protein and all that. Clearly, that's going to happen. Now, what was the question? My mind I just
like what are some theories about? What are some of your theories about what the mark of the beast might be?
Oh yeah. Well, the one thing I was going to say is that the scripture is clear that it has to do with the financial aspect of life, that it is an economic. You can either buy nor sell. So that keeps it for me from being purely a DNA physical marker of some kind. Now, will it be a physical marker? I don't know. Maybe it's like there's markers. Remember the marker in Ezekiel 6 about God basically telling Ezekiel you're going to be blown away by what you see, and there's going to be this angel that goes down the streets, and he's going to basically put a seal on the forehead of the true believers, and so he's basically going to protect those, but the others are going to be destroyed. So that's a pretty key indication of what the mark might be. Certainly, the scripture says in Revelation that we're going to be marked if we're still here, and if we are a true believer, we're going to be marked. And at some time, for some time, that's going to protect us. It doesn't look like it protects us all the way through the tribulation, however. So, right, but anyway, I still think we have to keep in mind that it's financial. It's very likely to be connected to digital currency. It is very likely that the central banks of the world are going to come together. There's going to be one central bank. There's going to be, it may be blockchain, and it maybe it's going to be a digital currency of some sort, but it's going to be run by one government, and it's going to be a controlling factor for virtually everyone on Earth. That is, if you're off the grid, you're probably okay, but if you're not off the grid, then you're going to be under control of that digital currency system, and that is clearly we're right on the cusp of that. I mean, it would be an upset if that doesn't happen really within the next, I'd say, 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the mark is floating around, soon to come about, and I think that once that happens, it would seem to me that we're going to be on a much faster runway, in terms of picking up speed towards towards the very end of the end days.
Wow. So within the next 3 years, you'd be surprised if that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a financial guy. I was a CFO for a number of companies, and so
nice.
I have a master's in finance, and so I pay pretty close attention to some of the financial guys out on YouTube and listen to them, and it's coming. It's going to be a controlling mechanism, and it's going to steal what little liberty we have left.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about what is it called, the Fed Now program? You know what I'm talking about?
Is it the
I don't know.
CBDC
Is
thing?
that related to the coming central bank currency?
It is, yeah. It has to do with the Federal Reserve has a pilot program that they just released among a sect of small business or businesses.
Yeah, I think that's what they are. They're testing it now.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Great.
Coming,
Well,
gentlemen.
good luck sleeping tonight, folks.
Yeah, I can't necessarily recommend to you, where you should keep your money. I'm still basically all in the stock market, and I know that there will be a time where that probably is not a good place to have your money. But as long as the United States still has the reserve currency,
Right.
which it still does, then the U.S. dollar and companies that basically denominate their revenue and their profits in dollars, that's still a pretty good place to be. I believe the gold bugs. The gold bugs are just constantly, crying the sky is falling.
Right.
And, if you have the ability to keep a certain percentage of your holdings in gold, that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
But you're not going to get rich necessarily. And, the gold may go up from $2,000 an ounce to $20,000 an ounce at some point. But at that point in time, it's probably going to be true that you're not going to really be at liberty to spend your money anyway. So,
What do you do with it?
Yeah, so you kind of just, this is where we all have to have faith in God,
Mhm.
that Lord God knows our needs, and He will make provision for us, and we should not trust in our money, but we should trust in Him.
Yeah.
And that's hard for all of us to do. It's hard for me to do too.
Yeah, it's hard for Americans to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just not the way we're taught, But
Yeah.
there is a point where that's what it comes down to, is faith that God will make a way for us.
Just tell me when it's time for me to be able to max out all my credit cards on generators and bunkers and new vehicles and backup vehicles and all sorts of stuff, because it's not going to matter in 6 months anyways.
Well, I know you
That's what
you
it
get
was
into this survivalism, right? And you those that are that believe the end of the world is coming, but it's doomsday, and you can somehow protect yourself against the zombie apocalypse. I just think it's a big waste of time. I mean, it's like, if the world comes to that point, I don't want to live in that world.
Yeah,
I'd rather the Lord take me home.
Amen.
If I've deserved the right, for the upward call, as Paul says. So, not a world I want to live in. So, so what are you trying to do? I mean, and it's like I always say, like, okay, so yeah, you set up enough money and enough food and medicine and so forth for 7 years. So your neighbor comes and they're hungry and they want food and you can't share it with them. So are you being a Christian then? Well, I can't do that because the prophetic scenario says this is going to go on for 7 years. So I better not give you any of my food. You didn't plan well, so you don't get anything. You're going to have to share. If you don't share, you're probably going to lose your salvation. If that were possible. If that were possible.
The love of many will grow cold.
It will indeed. Gold will be worth nothing. You'll be giving gold up for a loaf of bread.
A bag of gold will buy a loaf of bread.
The Larry Norman Rapture song. I remember it.
Is that what that is? I heard it in a DC Talk song.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's probably been.
It's probably the same thing. They're probably just singing that song.
Yeah, Larry Norman. What's the name of that song? It was. I think it was. I wish we'd all been ready.
Wish we'd all been ready. That's I guess they covered it then, because that's where I. Heard it.
Yeah. Wish we'd all been ready. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Oh yeah, there's some great. I mean, I was a real fan of some of those. Love song and second chapter of Acts, and what was Barry's last name? It was Dawn of Destruction or something like that. There's some great stuff back in the Jesus movement. I was there when all of that was happening, not in California, but I was paying attention to it. So cool. Pretty exciting time,
I guess so. Yeah, you would have been. Let's see, probably what, 8 years?
Well, that was all basically in the late 60s and kind of the first part of the 70s.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I graduated from college in 76. Graduated from high school at 72, I guess. So Woodstock was in 69. So yeah, I was
mid-teens
for that stuff. Yeah, and I was kind of a Jesus kind of guy back then, even. So I've never been. I'm just kind of a boring Christian from an early age.
Yeah.
So,
us too.
Come on, you were a Jesus freak before it was cool.
I was a Jesus kid when I was 11 years old. I mean, Billy Graham got me started. So, that's my story. I was goody two shoes.
Us too.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Except we don't get to say Billy Graham. We're just like, we were just here.
My daddy, spiritual daddy. But I had.
That's awesome.
I was fortunate to have a lot of influences from a lot of great people back in those days.
That's cool, man.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Well, let's get to the Patreon question real quick, and then we'll jump into the Septuagint, if that's all right.
Okay. All right. Well, we got another 15 minutes, it looks like.
Awesome. So one of our patrons, American Cars, has basically asked about J.D. Farage's reference to different levels of hell being different levels of punishment for sinners. And our friend and patron American Cars was just kind of curious what your take was, if you had any, on hell containing possibly different levels for different punishments and different levels of sin that people have, because as he likes to say, the wicked seem to go unpunished, and there are so many who do so many terrible things, a la The Sound of Freedom, and all these other things that we're seeing out there. So,
well, certainly, I guess I go to the statements. I can't quote the verses precisely, but Jesus clearly makes that, makes it clear that there are different levels of punishment. That some will incur many lashings. I'm trying to think what the word is that he uses, and others will receive few. So there's a differentiation. Then when he talks about Pontius Pilate, and he's talking with him, and Pilate basically is washing his hands, and Jesus basically says, well, you have guilt, but you don't have the same amount of guilt as the Pharisees out there in the street, and so he makes that clear. Your sin is less than the sin of what those leaders have done, because they knew the Messiah was coming, they knew characteristics of the Messiah, and they rejected him. So their sin is much greater. And so, yeah, I think that Jesus talks about it. Paul never really talks much about hell. Jesus talks about it, I think, 24 times. So it's a real thing, and different words, Gehenna, Hades and all that. So one of my favorite funny things is that there'll be people that will be cast out into outer darkness, where there will be, basically grief and the gnashing of teeth, and and then the subtitle is, and for those that do not have teeth, teeth will be provided.
The devil's dentures.
That's right. We'll give you some teeth so you can gnash your teeth with the worst of them.
Nice.
So,
I got a little side question about that. In the cosmology of when I was writing the Heavenly Realms novels, I wanted to have like some cannon fodder for the good guys to fight that weren't like their equidistant brothers, the fallen. And so I incorporated demons, just being disembodied spirits, the spirits of the damned. And again, like Heavenly Realms, it's just fiction. It's just fictional.
not the Nephilim, but just ghosts, basically.
Right. And that's basically what it was. In the demons in Heavenly Realms were just black anthropoidal shapes, like almost feral in nature, And so, but when you mentioned the outer darkness, I had forgotten about that. It almost kind of has a little bit of overlap on the Venn diagram with what I was trying to do, which is just like whatever sin kept these people from accepting salvation sort of condemned them to a life here to wander, and then they get roped into as chattel for these fallen, as like their thrall that they just whip and send out into the battle,
Right.
Any correlation with what you're talking about there with disembodied spirits, ghosts, but kind of being a level of damnation?
Yeah. Well,
I know we're going way out of your wheelhouse here, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm referring to scriptures that I'm thinking of. Certainly I believe that there were Nephilim, that there were children of angels. So I buy into the first book of Enoch, basically. And so I believe that, and I believe that Enoch basically says in that book, whoever wrote it, I don't think it was really Enoch, but that that these were disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and that the angels themselves, the 200, were basically put in chains and darkness in Tartarus, and that the others do roam. The Nephilim, their disembodied spirits do roam. And of course, Jesus encounters them in a major way in his ministry, as they cry out when he is near. And, you've come to punish us before our time.
Yeah, before the appointed time.
Before the appointed time. It's kind of like, wait, you can't touch me yet. Because
not yet.
Yeah.
Safe. On base.
Yeah, so Jesus says, okay, fine. Well, you can go live in pigs. Bye. So
getting the unclean animals.
Yeah, you can go you can go into the unclean animals if you want to, and go run up the cliff. Guess what? Yeah, you're still going to be disembodied after that. So, I don't know. I do think that that's the spirits. Now, there's a lot of people that do not agree. Doug Hamp is a friend, and if I remember right, he does not believe that those are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. And he believes that demons and angels are the same. I don't. So you've got different, but I guess that's my thought. I don't know if that was a complete thought or not, but that's kind of
no, I was just curious, It had been.
I'm pretty, kind of conventional in terms of where most of the teachers are today regarding Enoch and the Nephilim and angels and all that.
The angel cosmology has obviously always been one that's fascinated me, but
Mhm.
we separately, but we both recently watched Nefarious.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And which is great. It's almost like a modern redoing of the Screw Tape letters in so many
Mhm.
ways. And
Yeah.
that scene where the demon Nefarious is talking about his origin story and everything, and he sort of he basically equates himself to an angel.
Yeah.
And so there is this like common overlap that happens still to this day. And I don't know if like writers really believe that, or if that's like in DC's case, or if that's just like a convention of thing that you're doing for the sake of simplicity for your audience.
Yeah, I think it would have gotten the widest acceptance among the Christian
Yeah.
audience. They probably went with that. That was the only part of the movie. Theologically, I thought the whole movie was great. Except that part, I'm like, I'm more of a
Nephilim
disembodied spirits of the Nephilim guy.
guy. That's a whole can of worms.
I would think, the late Mike Heiser, who I really thought a lot of, I think a lot of us did, but his teachings in terms of Second Temple Judaism and demons and the angels, the fallen angels and all that, I know that I'm very sure that he believes that the disembodied spirits are the spirits of the Nephilim. Maybe not exclusively, but that's perhaps predominantly what they are. The concept of ghosts, and the people that were murdered that hang out, that they're ghosts. There's some strange things about that there might be some truth to that. But I wouldn't say that my knowledge goes to the point where I could rule that out. So I lived in the East, up in New England for about 5-6 years. And, it's different up there. You open up the newspaper and you look and you can go find, which coven meeting you want to go to that week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's we had neighbors that talked about their ghost in their house that does certain things and, basically rocks the chair till they tell the ghost to stop. Then the chair stops rocking, and same with ovens and things like that. So there's mysterious things that are going on. Is it a demon playing tricks? Probably, but it might be something else, So I don't know. But I know we're protected from any
That's
of
right.
that.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. I go into my job requires me to be in antique properties that have all been restored in downtown Franklin.
Yeah.
And right at the epicenter of the Battle of Franklin. So if I were and it's all hours of the day and night. Like I was there at 11 o'clock at night on Friday at one of them.
Yeah.
Never seen anything, never felt uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think like I always cringe. I'm like, I'm probably giving my guardian angel a workout just going up there.
Maybe.
It's like, suit up, boys. We're going in.
If you went and watched the Blair Witch Project again, and then you go into those old places, you might feel a little bit different. I have a suspicion. Might awaken some of those fears,
You might be right about that.
Yeah. So it was creepy, All right. Go on.
Let's talk about the Septuagint, baby. The new book that you have out.
Right.
Tell us all about it.
Well, I've got to hold up a copy of it here, so let's see if I can do that. Is that coming through okay?
Wow, that is beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you. Well, I do all my own covers and everything. That's the Jerusalem cross, basically, which was an emblem in the Middle Ages. I don't know if the Templars used it at all, but it was a symbol of evangelism, of the growth of Christians, and so forth. And the theme of the book is that the best defense for Jesus as the Christ, and the best defense of the authenticity of the Bible is to become aware of the Septuagint. And because the Septuagint was the oldest Hebrew Bible translated into Greek approximately 400 years before the Proto-Masoretic text was created by Rabbi Akiba, around 120 AD. So the Pentateuch was created about 280 BC. So you have a 400-year hiatus between the time that the Pentateuch of the Septuagint was translated in Alexandria, Egypt. And what you also think about then is, if you start thinking about ages, supposedly there's the letter of Aristeas, which may be true, may be fictional, but there were clearly those that knew Hebrew that translated from Hebrew into Greek, and they have said things in the Greek that you don't find in the Masoretic text. And when you look at the New Testament is quoting the Septuagint 80 to 90% of the time. And the Masoretic text came later after the New Testament, and it corrupts many of the messianic prophecies that you find in the Septuagint. And you see this when you do comparisons with when Paul is quoting the Old Testament. It becomes very clear that somebody made some changes to the words of the Bible, and those changes were made by Pharisees that took on a new name called rabbi, and they did this at their little training center in Javne, and Jamni is the anglicized way of saying that. And this was done at that time. Eventually, it would blossom into the Seder Olam Rabbah that Jose bin Halafta wrote, which was the Jewish calendar. And the Jewish calendar that was created then was helping to sort of canonize all the changes that were made also to the chronology of the Old Testament in Genesis 5 and Genesis 11, where the rabbis took out about 1,386 years, plus or minus a few years. And they did that to shorten the time from between Adam and the birth of Christ, because they were trying to prove that Jesus could not have been the Christ, because the Christ would come only after 5,500 years from Adam. That was their belief. And well, guess what? When you look at the Septuagint's chronology for Genesis 5 and 11, what you uncover is the fact that Jesus came at 5,500 years, plus or minus years. And so, anyway, if you do that and you compare the Messianic passages in the books I wrote, Rebooting the Bible, Part 1 and then Part 2. Rebooting the Bible, Part 1, I go through and analyze about 24 passages. And it's not every passage, it's just the ones that are Messianic, that talk about the nature of the Messiah, that he is divine, that talk about his ministry and his mission was to bring the Gentiles into the people of God. They changed that. The Gentiles are still on the outside based upon the way that the rabbis changed the scripture. Hold on. And then finally, the manner of salvation that the Messiah would bring would be trusting in his name. The Jews, the rabbis, changed it to reinforce that it was by the law, that one would be saved. And so those were the changes that were made. And when you do a comparison of the scriptures, you see that. And so that, and then the chronologies. So what I argue is that if you are trying to defend the fact that Jesus was the Messiah, it's important to go back and look at the Septuagint, because it records the way that the Hebrew prophecies were originally written. Yes, they were translated into Greek, but that's the way the prophecies were written in Hebrew. And it's also important to note that it was only about 120 to 140 years between the time that the Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek from the time that Ezra basically compiled the Bible, and around 420, 430 BC. So you only had about 120, 130 years between the time of Ezra and the time of the translation of the Septuagint. if you compare that to the Masoretic, you're getting close to 600 years. And so, the question is which one has the greater chance of being accurate in terms of the concepts and ideas that were expressed in the original Hebrew. So, and this was the belief, by the way, of the early church for the first 4 or 5 centuries. Eventually, the Latin Bible, the Vulgate of Jerome, would become the dominant Bible for the Western Roman Church. The Eastern Roman Church would still rely upon the Septuagint. They never changed. Of course, they're also known as the Greek Orthodox. So there's probably a reason why the Greek Bible and the Greek Orthodox sort of are married. But the Russian Orthodox and the Ethiopian Orthodox, all of the Orthodox Church relies upon the Septuagint. So anyway, so I go through in the new book. I also have a paperback copy too. Ta-da! And and so it's about 100,000 words, and it walks you through how we got the Bible, beginning with the story of the Septuagint. And the other books that talk about how we got the Bible, they ignore the Septuagint. They don't talk about it. And of course, that's the way the Reformation went. It ignored the Septuagint as well, for the greater part. Because they didn't want to go with the Roman Catholic Bible. Heaven forbid those Catholics, right? And even those Orthodox, well, those guys were into icons and all kinds of weird things, and so we can't go with them. So it's scripture only. So we want to go back to the source. We want to go back to the original Hebrew. And they went back to Rabbi Akiba's corrupted Hebrew that was composed around 120 to 130. And then later was translated into Greek by Aquila, and then later by Symmachus, and then by Theodotion. And so there were 3 Greek versions as the rabbis were trying to eradicate the Septuagint from the Jewish synagogue, because the Septuagint had been the Bible of the synagogue for several hundred years leading up to the time of Christ and just afterwards. So Rabbi Akiba and his team decided they need to create Greek Bibles that reflected the new Hebrew that they had manufactured. And so that's why you had Aquila's, which was very rigid compared to the others. Symmachus wrote probably the best in terms of readable, according to what, I don't read Greek, but according to what the experts say. And in Theodotion, his version of Daniel is actually the version that is published in the Septuagint today. And the book of Daniel in the Septuagint's kind of different. It has some other elements to it. Bel and the Dragon and one other that I can't think of right now. So anyway, so I try to walk you through, how the Bible got to us, how the Old Testament got to us. Most people don't know that it came through this homeless fellow that had been kicked out of I think he was kicked out of, not of Spain, but of another place around 1400, maybe it was Spain. And he was roaming the streets of Venice, and I think it was guys named Bomberg. And there was now a Gutenberg press. And so they actually created the first version of the Hebrew Bible that was meant for the public. The Biblia Hebraica, originally the Bomberg. This guy's name was Chaim, I believe, Ben Chaim. And so it was actually a homeless guy that knew Hebrew, and he no doubt relied upon Hebrew texts that had been saved by the Masoretes through the ages there for about 800 years. And he provided the basis for a printed Old Testament. And this actually Old Testament was printed after the Talmud had been printed, because Bomberg had access to that and didn't have someone to do the translation of the Bible. So anyway, so that's the Old Testament. The New Testament, we get into the story of Erasmus, the received texts. One of the things that I add to the story that I think is kind of unique is I talk about the conflict between 2 cities, between Alexandria and Antioch. And these 2 cities represent different sort of flavors of Christianity. Alexandria was a bit more spiritual, a bit more liberal in terms of its way of interpretation. And so it would use allegories. This was Origen, and he was later condemned as a heretic, but he was very influential in Alexandria. And then in Antioch, Antioch was considered to be the more conservative of the two. And eventually John Chrysostom, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but he was sort of a patron of the Antioch flavor of Christianity. And so you have these two flavors of Christianity sort of at war with each other in the 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries. So I talk a bit about that. I talk about the received text. Does the received text mean that it is revealed by God and was received in a special way? The answer is no. It means received more in the sense of it was a consensus version of the Bible. This leads up, of course, to the King James. I spend a lot of cycles on attempting to destroy the cult of the King James Bible. Right?
How dare you,
So,
sir?
Yeah, so I take you through, the story of King James Bible and do the comparison and talk about these changes that were made in the Masoretic text. But that was the basis of the King James Bible, as it was the other Bibles for the most part, Geneva Bible and so forth, Luther's Bible. They were all based predominantly on Akiba's Old Testament, a corrupted Old Testament. So anyway, so the book, the Septuagint, and the defense of the Christian Bible. So it really tries to enlighten the reader on why the Septuagint is not necessarily the exclusive Bible, because, again, 99% or about 98% of the Bible that was written in Hebrew is still present in the Masoretic text. It's present in our Bibles. But there are very important aspects of the Old Testament that were changed and lead to a less compelling view of Jesus as the fulfillment of the Messianic prophecy. So I think it's important.
So the 2% directly relate to Christ as the Messiah.
The Messiah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I haven't done a verse count.
That's not a coincidence.
No, but that's why you'd still say, the Bible I read regularly is the ESV, the Archaeology edition, which I've got over here on one shelf, and it's a great Bible. It talks about the Septuagint a little bit in terms of pointing out some of the differences in the wording, and there are really a lot of differences. By the way, there are a lot of differences. Many of them are not consequential, but some are interesting. And but the area where I focus on is prophecies and the chronologies, and point out why, if you have those right, if you get those right, then Jesus is more. It's more compelling that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah. So that's the point of the book. So hopefully, and I get into some other arguments. The people that do the chick publications, they talk about the fact that the Septuagint was written after the New Testament, and it had to be written after the New Testament because, well, first off, it says things just like the New Testament does, so it had to be written after the New Testament, which sort of denies the concept of prophecy, right? Mm-hmm. But then the real reason is that if the Septuagint is right, then the King James Bible is wrong. And so that's why if I'm check publications, I had to write or I had to present a story as to why it is that the Septuagint was written after the New Testament was written, which is absurd. But nevertheless, it's all to protect the King James Bible and its inerrancy. That it was the King's English was more inspired than the Greek or the Hebrew.
I see.
All right.
So the swing of the state scepter.
Yes. So yeah.
That's
so
a moxie for you.
Elizabethan English is where it's at. That's God inspired. So God was clearly an Englishman.
Well, we were talking about Gog and Magog earlier, and I was trying to think of a way to segue directly into your book. But I had recently discovered, I think, from one of our comments
Mhm.
about how it's there's an argument about whether it's Gog and Magog or if it's Gog of Magog, Gog
Right.
in the land of Magog, and this actually seems to tie into the Septuagint.
Well, you have the
was gonna ask
yeah.
about
There's I forgive me. I need to study that because yes, there is a couple of elements. I think it's the concept of Rosh, Rosh is the way it's anglicized, but the issue is Rosh referring to Russia, or is it just the word prince or chief prince? Was that what Ezekiel was saying? That Gog was the chief prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tobletsk or whatever. So yeah, so there's some real interesting things, and the Septuagint does have a different reading, and I need to go study that. It's one I have not gotten to yet.
Interesting.
Next time. We'll
Next
get you
time.
for next time.
Next time, I need to go do it. It's on my to-do list.
You know, if there's one guy who can maybe get me to turn loose in my King James,
Uh-oh.
It might be Doug
I think it
Woodward.
might be Doug.
Yeah. Well, King
I
James
love
is a
King
great
James
book.
too.
Great book. One of the most important books in the English language, without any question. Millions of people have been saved by it, so it's okay.
Sure.
Jesus, the Messiah, still shines through. The rabbis couldn't hide it. It's still there. But
That was Billy Graham's translation of choice.
oh yeah, that's Southern Baptist.
yeah.
Mm.
Definitely the
Mhm.
Well,
Baptist.
you said God isn't an Englishman, but the
God is an
anti-
Englishman. if
God
you're-
is he may be, he may not be, but the Antichrist might be.
Yes, well, that's true too. He definitely might be, and he might quote the King James version
He
too.
might.
He might. So yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it, right?
Put that lump of sugar in your tea and drink it.
That's right. So, so anyway, the book's available at Amazon. It will soon be available at Prophecy Watchers.
Okay.
Cool.
And it's available from me, so you can go to my website. And also, I'm raising some money in terms of my ministry, and if you are willing to donate $100 to Faith Happens Books, I'll send you a copy of the hardback and sign it for you. And I've had quite a few people take me up on that offer. So you just send an email. Yeah. A dozen maybe so far. So,
Yeah.
Yep. So it's mostly, I made it public for this little video I mentioned to you guys earlier that talks a bit about what's been going on with my family. And in that, I also sort of announced the book and talk about the opportunity to donate to me because we have medical bills. And
I
they're
know the feeling.
not all, I've already begun to see them and they're kind of scary.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Well, thanks for the chance to talk a bit about the book. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Doug, mention it again so I can write it down.
Yeah,
Where can people donate to you?
The best thing to do is there is a donate button. I put a donut button. There is a donate button. If you send me an email and just indicate to me your interest in doing the donation, I'll send you back the link, and then I also need from you the physical address. And the physical address allows me to actually post it to you and send you a copy.
Now, would they? Do you want to give your email, or is that something they do through your website?
No, it's fine. Doug at faithhappens.com, and Faith Happens has a hyphen in it. So Doug at faith-happens.com. And if folks do want to watch the little video, it's about a 12-minute video out on YouTube, and it will give you all the information about the book and where you can get it and email and all that stuff. So it's all there.
Awesome.
Dude, I'm doing that
Cool.
tonight. That sounds
Oh,
great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Doug,
well, I'm proud of it. It's a book that. Oh, I didn't say that the book's got color stuff in it, did I? The hardback is color.
I figured it probably did. It looked beautiful.
Give us a sneak peek.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find a copy of. There's about 30 different color pictures and charts and things, and so it's I try to bring the. I don't it's not chock full of those. I try to show like that's that's the preface to the Bishop's Bible, which was the forerunner to the King James, and that's Queen Elizabeth I. Yeah, so I've got that. I've got the same thing for the Geneva Bible, the same picture for the King James, here's the Geneva Bible. It's frontispiece basically.
Wow.
So I try to use the color where it kind of helps the story. Here's Martin Luther's Bible. So these are all done in around 1560, 1570, and so so there's a lot of charts. Here's an actual picture from the Gutenberg, original Gutenberg Bible. So,
Wow.
again, just little snapshots to kind of give you a little added color and appreciation for the history. And I really like the fact, though, that the print is so sharp and clear, and the paper is very high quality. So it's really an expensive book to manufacture.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be making a whole lot unless you do a donation, because it costs
We
me
know
a
the
lot.
feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's that. If that's too much, then there is a paperback. It's in black and white, though, folks. So
Yeah, that hardcover is awesome, man.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
beautiful.
grand.
I
I
think it'll-
aspire.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a keepsake, because I can't get to all the writing I want to do, so I'm going, well, I better write this one. I better make this the hardback, because I don't know if I'll have a chance to do another. I hope I do, but we'll see.
Lord
So-
willing.
Yes. Lord
Okay.
willing.
Last thing before we go, we've started to do this with all of our guests.
Okay.
Our motto here on the Goslings is take up the broken sword of your father and strike down the darkness.
Yes.
Any last words of wisdom for our audience on how they might go forth and strike down the darkness, Doug Woodward?
Wow. Well, certainly we've got to remember that we have been given a very special authority, by the fact that we're identified with Jesus Christ. You guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with the opening to the book of Ephesians. That we have been crucified with Christ, we've been resurrected, and then we have ascended, and we are co-seated with Christ now in the heavenlies. And so that's positionally, that's the legal binding statement. It's done. And the seal of that is the Holy Spirit in us. So we need to remember our position in Christ, and that the authority, as Jesus said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. And basically, I give it to you. Go and make disciples of all nations. And so he has armed us with an amazing amount of power through the Holy Spirit, through the Word of God, the armor. But also we need to remember really that positioning, that we are co-seated on the throne with Jesus Christ.
Amen, brother.
Awesome.
Doug Woodward, author
Yes.
of the Septuagint and Defense of the Christian Bible, also author of Rebooting the Bible and Lying Wonders of the Red Planet, amongst many other amazing books.
Thank you.
Faith-happens.com.
That's
place to find you.
where you find me. Yeah,
Awesome.
A lot of free articles out there. So I'm not just pinching, or not just after your money. I want to help provide some teaching too. So it's out
there
there.
is a lot of great stuff. Doug,
Yeah.
I would love to get you back just to talk movies, man.
Hey,
so
let's
fun.
do it. I love movies.
Yeah?
Yeah, we ought to get my son on here, because he's like an expert in horror movies.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
He knows horror pictures backwards and forwards. So if you want to go into the horror genre, he's the guy.
Dude, it'd be
Cool.
cool to maybe do like a Halloween episode where we talk about
He's the
demon
guy.
movies.
Yeah.
You know?
He writes every Halloween. He has a party at his house, and he features a horror movie, and he writes a extended, like backgrounder to that movie. So you learn all about who made the movie, what was going on, all the the little innuendo, the little things that happened that were problems, and he tells the whole story. So
Cool.
he is the film buff when it comes to horror pictures.
We might be able to get both of you guys on for a
We
spooky
can.
Halloween special.
That'd be fun. I'd love to do a show with
Awesome.
my son. So, all right, cool.
Thank you,
All right,
Doug.
guys. Thank
Take
you.
care, buddy.
See you later.
A
Thanks
pleasure.
again.
See
Thank
ya.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Apparently, we just decided to blow out everybody's ears there right at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know why that happened. That was
Yeah,
weird.
sorry.
I don't know. Anyways, dude, Doug Woodward has been kind enough to be in the chat. for
The
this.
Doug Woodward with us tonight. Thank you,
Yeah,
Doug.
that's
It was a
pretty
great
cool.
interview. We really enjoyed it last week.
Yeah.
And,
Cool guy. Super cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think, Beach?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, having an apologetic degree, I mean, what he's talking about is pretty poignant.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You know, he's
Yep.
hitting some nails right on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And he's well researched too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Well, it's been a wonderful evening. The chat's
has.
been very lively. Really
Yeah.
appreciate everyone interacting tonight. Great questions. People have been sending questions to Doug. He's been fielding a lot of those. Just really appreciate that. It was an
Yeah.
investment on Doug's part to join in the chat tonight, in addition to being with us last week.
Yeah.
So really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's kind of rare. Some of our guests sometimes have the time and availability to do that sort of thing, and we are always super appreciative when they do. It really helps our audience out, and it's just great for everybody.
You the man, Doug.
Yeah,
Yeah, Doug, you are
rock,
the man.
buddy. Yeah.
You are the man.
So,
Well, I want to give a quick shout out to our patrons real quick. We like to we've got so many wonderful patrons. First off, we're going to give a shout out to Joanne, or excuse me, Joanne B, Lisa S. You guys are amazing.
Mhm.
And Joanne is actually in Australia,
oh yeah,
and she has a package that's on the way.
nice.
She's one of our Pressfield level patrons.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And we got something in the mail to you. It's on the way.
All right,
So,
Joanne.
yeah.
Yep.
Hemingway level patrons, you guys are the backbone. Thank you so much for what you do. Your support is greatly appreciated. Including, I saw American Cars in the chat tonight too. Thank you for joining us tonight. In addition
Thanks,
to the
buddy.
generous support on Patreon, and man, the foundation.
Yeah,
We got Orwell level patrons.
yeah.
These guys, these are all people who signed up to get exclusive content to support us at that level, so they get to see the rest of the interview with Doug. It's fantastic stuff. We do it with all of our guests. We'd encourage you guys to go over to Patreon as well. Patreon.com/the Gosslings. We'd be honored to have your support. And if I may,
Yeah.
give a shout out to our very own Spartan level patron, Goss Hog Lifts. You guys should, look at that.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go over to
We
Goss.
haven't had anything
Oh,
like
sorry,
that.
hold on. Let's turn that off. Sorry. Okay. You guys need to go over to Instagram and check out Goss Hog Lifts for fitness content that inspires young men to reclaim their identity and purpose in a generation
That's my boy.
of darkness. And there he is right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
My boy. Fruit of my loins right there. That's my boy.
The only one with a true Spartan physique.
Yes, yes.
That's right. You are physically qualified, Joe.
Right.
You
Yeah.
didn't get it from me. That's for sure.
Enjoy it while it lasts,
Yeah,
buddy.
Joe, we appreciate you, man. We always enjoy giving you a shout out
Yeah.
on the channel. And next up, real quick, I want to. We should probably talk about the books,
Oh yeah.
and I'm going to go first,
Sure.
but I'm not going to talk about the book I thought I was going to talk about.
Cool. Okay.
I'm actually going to answer
Yep.
Mike Fisher's question
Mhm.
about the cover for a new book coming out called Unplugging Babel. Unplugging Babel is
Yeah.
the title of it. Unplugging Babel should be out. Release date is going to be October 31st. I'll have the final cover for you guys to check out here in the next couple of weeks. I've just finished it recently. It is a manifesto against AI, social media, and smart technology from a Christian perspective through the lens of prophecy.
Now, the only difference here is if Nick decides to move out to a cabin in the woods, unlike the last guy,
Yeah.
I, as his brother, will not betray him.
Thank you.
Old Teddy got ratted out by his bro.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
Not me. I didn't rat you out. What you talking about?
I'm talking about Ted Kaczynski.
Ted Kaczynski.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is not a Ted Kaczynski book. This is a warning. This is
Oh,
something
it was
for
so
Christians to
close.
read. If you're a Christian and you suspect that there is something nefarious behind AI and smart technology and the direction it's going,
Yeah.
this book will give you a lot of validation and also a lot of hope.
Yeah.
So hope you check it out.
And you put the title to a vote on the Patreon, correct?
I did, yeah. So on the the patrons voted on the title of the book and which cover they liked the best.
Yeah.
And so I let them weigh in on that. So
There you
yeah,
go.
it's going to be good. That's all I'm going to say about my book right now because there's nothing to scan, there's nothing to see. I'm just telling you that it's on its way.
He's
It's on its
front-loading.
way. I'm front loading. I'm front loading. However, instead of front loading, let's talk about your book.
We can backload.
Yeah, backload.
We can backload.
Heavenly Realms. I wrote them. There you go. Scan it. Buy it.
Oh, go out
Good
and
night,
buy
folks.
these. They're great.
Buy my book.
Seriously.
So
Years in the making. Years.
yeah, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years to write them, and another. Yeah, right. And another 10 years to figure out how to publish them. Thanks to this guy, actually.
Thank you.
Heavenly Realms is a 7-novel series about the wars between the angels. It is biblically based Christian angelic warfare fantasy fiction. So it is kind of like 300 meets, the Book of Revelation or Gettysburg, and maybe Braveheart combined.
Yeah,
You
maybe.
Anyways, the QR code is right there for the first novel in the series, Empyrean Falling.
Scan it now. Scan it. Somebody scan it now. Scan it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep reading till somebody scans. You're all my No,
Oh,
I'm kidding.
please, somebody scan.
Please,
Please, quick.
Please, somebody.
Please, somebody
We're gonna
scan so
read
we can
it
stop
until-
reading.
Until somebody scans it. Oh my yes.
Oh,
yes!
never mind.
Yeah, who scanned
All
it?
right,
Oh,
yeah.
Joe, you scanned it? Oh,
Joseph
man.
doesn't count.
Oh,
Joseph doesn't
man.
count.
All
I'm
right.
gonna read. I'm gonna read a little excerpt from a battle in the second book. This is Grey Aegis. This is book 2 in the series, and this is right towards the end of a battle where the main guy, the narrator, and his legion of fallen angels who are looking to gain some sort of redemption by being a mercenary army have wrapped up and defeated another fallen army led by a former elder
Okay.
from the Heavenly Council, who's a super bad guy. From a distance, Lake observes the end of our duel, his eyes wild with fervor and his armor slathered in gore. Wow, was that a swift kick in the figs or what? He brays, grinning. Moments later, the condensed ranks of his phalanx are met by Argo and his remnant. They share wary glances and set to work. The two elect to fight as a constellation, working in tandem against the final enemy crush. I pivot to regard Asmodeus, only to find him whipping his chariot steeds for the valley exit. Without hesitation, I grab one of the color guard's battle bows and herald my lieutenant. Lake, I call through the cacophony. He swivels until he finds me. I toss him the bow and point to Asmodeus. He's making a run for it. Lake grimaces at the bow, then at me. He resents being a prodigy with that weapon. To him, it's effeminate. But his devotion to our cause overrides his frustration, so he knocks and takes aim. I watch the arrow leave its string and soar away. It arcs into the eyelet of the lead stallion's chamfron, an impossible shot at so many yards. The steed plays out and the whole team tumbles with it, crashing the chariot into the muck. Asmodeus flails clear of the wreckage and rises, stumbling as he sprouts his wings and readies to fly, dazed and wounded. I turn back to Lake, beaming. How did you do that? He shrugs. Lucky, I guess. Without warning, a lance head buries itself in his lower abdomen, just below the bronze cuirass. Lake doubles over just as Argo twirls to defend him with his Aspis shield. The scene is swallowed by warring angels, and the two are lost to vision.
Nice.
Ooh,
And
yeah, baby.
somebody scanned.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Somebody
somebody-
scanned, yeah.
Yeah.
Showing Jonathan some
Yeah,
love tonight, guys.
that's
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Very
Well
good,
done, man.
very good, very good.
Well, we talked about the books. We talked about the Patreon.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to go over tonight?
I don't think so, man. I think that's everything. Dude, Joseph, BJ.
Thank you
Love
for
having
having
back.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you for including us, and be sure to check out Joe's Instagram.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Beach, when you get your music up and going,
Yeah, I want to get my music up and going.
we get to pimp you next.
Yeah, baby. I'm going to come with my bling, my Grammys, and whatever's bling.
You got to do that. Promise. Next Illuminati after party, maybe.
If I can do it without hurting them, I'll have to see.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maybe if I use like fuzzy, soft chord.
Might hurt your back the weight of the success.
Yeah, the weight of success
Might
bearing
hurt
down
back
on
the
me.
weight
Yeah.
It's
You
a
know,
burden.
success.
It's a burden.
The mantle of BJ.
Oh God, here
Is-
we
Oh,
go,
There it is.
God,
There it is.
No way.
Jonathan.
This young tyke
You have to
is a
watch our.
two-time Grammy award-winning audio engineer.
Eldest Goss brother.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Yeah.
You know what?
And such a little cutie
Look
pie.
at cutie. Look at it.
Put
Just-
that
you-
thing away.
The
please.
sound of
You look so
God's
happy
sake.
and fulfilled. What
Uh,
Grew up.
happened? You got kids?
I had you. That's what happened. That's what happened.
that's what happened.
I just want to make music and hang out with my bros. Say goodbye to your dreams.
Yeah.
want to hang out with my
That's when I
bros.
kissed my future goodbye.
I can't wait to have kids of my own someday.
Jonathan, stop. I don't talk like that.
I don't talk like that.
Yeah. Joe. Jerry says she loves Joe's Instagram. Nothing makes you feel more like a fat cow than looking at Joe's Instagram.
If you need to be shamed in a very very healthy way,
I appreciate it. She's
Then,
always so nice. Love
you know,
Jerry Bradley. She's the
we
best.
do.
Yeah, we do love.
and she has her own
Bradley.
channel, JRB Live. Everybody
Yeah, she's
should
an
check out.
author herself.
Yep. And Gabriel Bello Music says, "Is there a link to buy all of your books?" Yeah. It should be. It was in the QR code, and I think we posted in the comments also. So thank
The
you, Gabe.
woman, the
Gabriel
woman.
Bello Music is also a dear friend of ours, and he's been a big supporter. You should check out his channel as well.
So Chris will be happy to know that I have not sharded at all
Oh,
today.
good.
He was,
Oh,
he
fantastic.
was saying go shard, BJ. And I have not go sharded
Yeah,
in several days.
Shard. That's right.
Yeah, if you want to get that reference, go back and watch our Illuminati after
Oh,
party
so
episode that
fun.
we did, where it was our first episode with BJ, and it was
Yeah.
awesome. We had
Yeah.
so much fun. So
Yeah.
we're really looking forward to having you around more, man.
Well, thank you for just
Yeah.
inviting me and
Yeah,
having some real intelligence be a part of all this
Yep.
mess.
you know,
You know, summer's over. We're back. We got all four. We've never had 4 people.
yeah,
This is the first time.
Bloodline.
Yeah, we're the whole blood. That's right, the whole bloodline.
Yeah.
We're all here.
yeah.
We're all well, not all of us. We got one more brother we have to talk in.
There's one
That-
more
yeah,
brother
there's
we
one
gotta
more.
talk into.
Need some
yeah.
convincing.
Yeah,
So I get a little camera right over there on him.
We'll get him.
It'll be
get him.
great.
and
Yeah.
and Andy, we could get Andy in
Ooh,
here.
cousin Andy, yeah.
That might be a mistake.
That'd be a mistake.
We,
No,
could
man.
get, we could get 6 completely unruly gossip.
We'll get 3
Causing all
YouTube
kinds
strikes
of-
in
oh
one
my-
video.
Oh my god, we wouldn't last 10 minutes.
Toast moonshine.
You could, think you could talk him into it? To driving up
Well-
here just for this?
Maybe. I don't know if your viewers could take such a long, slow Georgia accent. I mean, our Georgia family, which is my dad's side of the family. I mean, they're hillbillies, man.
I love
They
it.
are hillbillies.
Yeah.
Bring moonshine to all the July 4th family reunions, and
Mhm.
we're so proud. And,
Yeah, but our friends, our patrons and watchers and people in the chat, I think they'd probably, they'd be a great, they
hilarious.
might enjoy
He's
that.
coming. He might be moving back.
Yeah.
Actually,
Oh, yeah.
that's what he
Mhm.
said.
Oh,
We'll
that'd
get
be
him on
cool.
here, and
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
Uncle Andy.
Yeah,
Dude,
man.
Andy is so much fun.
He's awesome.
I love
We'll
like
get him here.
that whole side of the family.
He'd
is
love
so
this.
awesome.
He would love this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would. Yeah, we've been trying to do it forever, and his schedule would never accommodate. But I think we could work something.
And I'm going to get Cameron on here. He's the last of the little brothers.
Delicious.
That's
He's the
right.
last of the little brothers. I'll
Yep.
get him on here.
Yeah.
Little Frumpalicious kitty cat.
I'll have to pull my big brother clout.
Think you can do it? Think you can pull it off?
I do.
Okay.
I can get,
All right.
I can get him here.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
thank you for having us, guys.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Glad you
Appreciate
guys are here with us.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Joe.
Love you guys.
Next
Take it
week,
easy.
we will be airing our interview with Michael Gagliardi.
Gagliardi.
I will
Gagliardi.
never pronounce his
Gagliardi.
Italian name
Gagliardi.
correctly, but he's amazing. We love Michael a lot. We had our first interview with him, and he told the story about his demonically possessed mother
Yes.
growing
Dude's
up.
been through it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has.
Horrifying.
So tune in next week at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for the next episode of the Gosslings. And until then, I'm Jonathan,
I'm Nick.
I'm BJ
I'm Joseph.
and we are the Goslings.
Goslings.
Yeah.
There you
Go for it.
Big
And
four.
strike down the darkness.
Yeah.
Good night.
Go shut.